want to welcome to Studio One today. I'm Scott Seiler, along with the entire Studio One crew, Kim Fisher, Jennifer Vandergaan, and Craig Trellman. Thanks so much for joining us today. We have the man who's probably considered the #1 Republican in the state. Governor Ed Schafer joins us today because it's the weekend of both Republican and Democratic state conventions. North Dakota's Attorney General Heidi Heitkamp will also be here talking about juvenile crime. But before we get to those guests and the rest of our show, Jennifer, what stories grabbing news headlines today?
Japan is looking for a new prime minister.
Any good news in the weather, Craig?
Well, not in the short term, in fact. Just when we thought all the snow was gone, by noon today we could see some snow and rain, but it's going to be short-lived.
Okay, thanks, Craig. Well, straight ahead today on Studio One, North Dakota Governor Ed Schafer will talk about his executive order against Canadian wheat and durum imports to the state, plus putting his Fish and Dakota company up for sale.
And later in our second half hour, with all of us having spring fever, Dale Anderson will tell us how to rough it when going camping.
We'll have more on the weather and the sports in just a few minutes, but first, Jennifer Vandergaan with the top news stories at this hour. Jennifer?
Thanks, Scott. Japan is searching for a new prime minister after Morihiro Hosokawa announced his resignation. His coalition government has been paralyzed by allegations surrounding personal loans he received. Hosokawa apologized, saying his resignation is necessary to get the government moving again. Japan's news service quotes a government official who says Japan's foreign minister is a possible successor to Hosokawa. Stocks plunged 400 points on Japan's financial markets after Hosokawa's announcement. They later rebounded, closing up 44 points. Another piece of Cold War has melted away in South Dakota. The last nuclear missile silo in the state was emptied of its lethal contents and destroyed Thursday. At the height of the Cold War, 150 Minuteman II missiles were poised for launch from South Dakota. Arms reduction treaties have led to their complete removal. The number of Black, Hispanic, and Native American students attending college is rising, but many are leaving without diplomas. The American Council on Education performed a study. Over 50% of white and Asian students completed degrees within 6 years at 298 NCAA Division I colleges. That number dipped below half for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. The trend also exists at UND. UND officials say it's important to find out why minority students drop out.
That interplay with anybody's decision to drop out is still there for the minority students, but maybe there are some compounding factors as well, and we're not sure. We need to follow up on that.
Sheevy adds UND is looking at ways to keep minorities in school. The percentage of minority students at UND who receive a degree is higher than the national average. Preliminary research by a doctor from Duke University shows smoking may be more of a health risk than previously thought. In addition to increased risk of cancer, strokes, and heart disease, the study says smokers are likely to have more serious injuries to muscle tissue than non-smokers. The study focused on the rotator cuff, a group of muscles surrounding the shoulder joint. It concluded that smoking reduces blood supply to tendons and muscles, making them more susceptible to injury. People often wonder where they come from. Reporter Mike Garrison has found a place right on campus where students with questions about their family trees can find answers.
The Dakotas hold much history. All that remain today are pictures, but those who want to track down their ancestry come to the Chester Fritz Library, North Dakota's largest genealogical records collection.
We have a fairly complete collection, or the second largest collection really of Norwegian Bygda books here. And so for anyone interested in tracing their Norwegian ancestry, that's a good draw. But the other thing is, we also just have some basic sources for doing family history.
Though family trees don't materialize with one visit to the stacks, many don't mind the work.
I found in 1989 we visited second cousins in Marietta, Ohio that I never met before. So it's rewarding.
Immigration records are the first step. Once the family name is found, the reference set points you in the right direction. UND also has an interlibrary loan system which taps into other repositories.
It's really interesting. You can find out, I mean, most people don't realize how much you can find out, even about little towns and stuff that they lived in, and you can find out so much about the past. People think that it's all lost, but we really do have a lot here in special collections.
Visitors say they leave with the more personal type of history lesson. For Studio One News, I'm Mike Garrison.
Special Collections is on the 4th floor of the Chester Fritz Library and is open to the public on weekdays. and none of the materials can leave the building, so you have to do your research right there at the Chester Fritz.
It seems like it's almost becoming a fad.
People come in for their lunch hours and do research on their family history.
Interesting. Thanks, Jennifer. Well, after much too long of a wait, it's finally starting to feel like spring. Craig joins us now with the weather. Craig?
Well, thanks, Kim. And with the warming temperatures, it certainly does feel like spring, but we may have one major obstacle to overcome. Well, currently in Grand Forks, we do have a partly cloudy sky, a temperature of 42 degrees. The winds are out of the south to southeast at 15 miles an hour, and our pressure is falling. Looking at some temperatures around the region, it's relatively mild this morning, where it's 37 in Winnipeg, 42 in the Twin Cities, 43 in Fargo, and 44 out in Bismarck. Well, on the national scene today, our focus is on this low pressure system mixing with a high pressure ridge, which is causing some precipitation and the chance for some rain and snow by noon today. Out to the west, the low pressure system is starting to build, and that's going to cause some problems in the Rockies and the west throughout the weekend. But out to the east, things look relatively clear. As we look ahead further into today, as I said, that snow and rain is going to continue to build, and it's going to push its way currently in Dickinson and Bismarck area. They are receiving some snow and rain, and that's going to push its way into our area by later today. However, out to the west, as I said, that low pressure system is going to continue to build, but as we look further ahead into the weekend, it's going to grow stronger and bring rain and snow to the west and the Rockies. But as we look for us, things are going to start to clear up by late today, early tomorrow, and that should move to the east of us. And a low pressure system is going to start to build into the east, and that's going to cause some precipitation. Well, temperatures today are going to be relatively mild. In fact, we'll see temperatures in the 40s, 50s across most of the upper portions of the nations, and 50s and 60s and 70s in the south. Overnight tonight, well, things are going to stay relatively mild. In fact, we'll see temperatures in the 30s, some 40s and 50s below us. Well, for the rest of the day today, we're going to expect to see an increasing cloudy sky. As I said, by noon today, there's a real good chance that we're going to see either rain or snow. A temperature right around 50 degrees, hopefully today, and winds out of the southwest. For tonight, well, things are going to stay cloudy. The rain and snow should dissipate. We'll see a low right around 35 degrees, and the winds will be out of the northwest. But looking ahead into the weekend, wow, things look great. Temperatures back in the 50s. The clouds are going to be lifting. So, Scott and Kim, some rain and snow, but by next week, sunshine and warm temperatures.
Thanks, Craig. Well, we can't always count on the good weather, but with spring, you always can count on baseball.
Spring fever, baseball fever, people have it a lot. Well, in sports, the hockey and basketball seasons are winding down to the playoffs, and baseball is starting its long season. First, we'll start with some highlights from hockey. In the NHL, the Bruins rally with 2 goals in the third to beat the Senators 5-4 and regain the advantage over Montreal and Buffalo in the fight for the home ice in the playoffs. Turning to baseball now, in the National League, the Braves sweep a season opening series with San Diego. Atlanta wins it 10-8 in the 11th inning. Dave Justice with the game winner with an RBI single. And now to the NBA, where the Knicks in overtime dumped the Cavaliers 97-94. Eric Harper with 2 key three-pointers in overtime. The second one coming with just 6 seconds left as New York completes their first season sweep of the Cavaliers. Those are the highlights. Local sports still ahead on Studio One. But now your first look at the rest of the overnight scores. Spring might be late this year, but things are already heating up for UND's baseball team. The team season is just getting underway, and the players have returned from a road trip to Florida. The Sioux split the trip, winning 5 games and losing 5. A bright spot came when they beat the Division I Indiana Hoosiers. The coaching staff is focusing on taking back the North Central title.
Our second goal is obviously we want to be consistent. We don't want to have a whole lot of highs and lows. We want to stay at a consistent pace, and we want to play good baseball.
This is Ziegler's first year as head coach, and he's hoping to live up to last year's season when UND made its first ever trip to the NCAA Division II tournament. This weekend, the team hosts Minnesota Duluth on Saturday and then Dickinson State on Sunday.
All over the place.
Yeah, they're going to be very much busy this weekend. We still have much more for you on Studio One today. First, we'll talk with Governor Ed Schafer on putting up the for sale sign on his Fish in Dakota business, plus a look at his recent trip to Mexico and NAFTA.
But now a look at some of the events happening around your area this week. Stay with us as Studio One continues.
Insurance. Unfortunately, it costs. Fortunately, it pays. Voller Insurance. Grand Forks, Devil's Lake, Bismarck.
I really recommend the Community National Bank because I think that they know how to take care of people, whether it's for business or personal. I want a relationship with a bank that understands my needs, and Community National fulfills that relationship. They're good, they're friendly, they're conscientious, they take the time to learn about your business, and they're willing to go that extra mile to help us when we need help.
Pick your insurance company? As your agent and broker, that's our exact job. We think we do it well, and have been since 1947. Voller Insurance. Grand Forks, Devil's Lake, Bismarck.
North Dakota Governor Ed Schafer has been in office for nearly 2 years, and during that time he headed up a committee to go to Mexico to observe the effects of free trade. He's asked for cuts in higher education spending, and the governor's latest action, issuing an executive order against Canadian wheat and durum imports to North Dakota, which means suspending payment to Canadian producers of the refund of taxes collected on both wheat and durum. And on the weekend of the state Republican convention in Grand Forks, Governor Schafer talks about his first year and a half in office. Governor, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Why don't you tell us first about the executive order? Why did you do it, and what do you hope comes from it?
Well, our producers of wheat, and one correction there, it isn't barley, it's just wheat. Just wheat. The producers of wheat in North Dakota have been asking for a long time for some protection on Canadian grain coming into the U.S. Through North Dakota. We issued an executive order that will delay the checkoff payment refunds to Canadian producers. And it's not focused on Canadian producers, it's any producer outside the United States. What it is it's sending a message to Canada that we want to deal with this problem. Through the NAFTA agreement, Canada and the United States should be focused together to market our grain to the rest of the world, to the European community, to Japan, Russia, China, those things, instead of competing with each other. We haven't been able to get them to the table. We said if we do this, this is a signal that we're going to do everything that we can do from North Dakota. It isn't a huge impact, it's a small amount of money, it isn't going to put the Canadian government out of business, it certainly isn't going to affect Canadian producers, but it's saying we want to work together, we have to get to the table and work this thing out.
What about your recent trip to Mexico and free trade? What did you accomplish there, and what are your future plans?
Well, you know, it was a nice door opening session. One of the things we learned is the concern down there that they have with the Canadian and United States grain problem. They're thinking about putting on countervailing tariffs because the Canadian is subsidizing their grain going into Mexico. The U.S. is retaliating and through our export enhancement program, shipping grain into Mexico at a lower price. So they're saying we're getting caught in the middle here. We may have to put countervailing tariffs on to protect our producers. But it was a great trip. They're very interested in North Dakota livestock, the quality, upgrading their herds. They also now, as they reduce their costs of subsidies, they will reduce the acreage and production of corn, of wheat, and other sunflowers, for instance, and that'll give us opportunities from North Dakota to ship our products there.
Okay. Just a couple days ago, you announced you're putting up the for sale sign on your Fish in Dakota company. During your television commercials in your campaign for running it, you featured your business a lot, and you featured how you're going to bring business to North Dakota and everything. Do you think by selling it, you're living up to the voters' expectations of bringing business into North Dakota?
Oh, absolutely. You know, we sold over $1 million of fish there last year. The doors are open. We're selling fish. I think we have a load going out today. You know, it's a good business. I like the business. The fact is, I've been responsible, and the voters have asked me to run the state of North Dakota. They didn't ask me to go run Fish in Dakota. And so my business is the state of North Dakota. That's my first focus. That's where I'll be. We do have well over 14,000 new jobs in the state of North Dakota today versus last year. The economy is moving around out there a little bit. We see headlines every day about new jobs and new opportunities in our state. I think it's moving in the right direction, and I'm pleased with the investment that we made in North Dakota, and pleased to be able to focus 100% of my time and energies to the governor's office.
Do you wish it would stay around a little longer, your company?
Well, sure you do. I mean, I'm assuming it will. We have several potential purchasers for it, and the aquaculture industry is moving forward. It's a leading edge technology as obviously the fish in the ocean are getting overfished. They're disappearing on us. The environmental problems. People are asking for food that is clean and safe, and aquaculture fills that need. We've seen a lot of focus on that, and I'm sure over the next 10 years we'll see a lot of aquaculture business in the United States and I believe in North Dakota.
Mm-hmm. Do you hope it stays in here quickly, your business? Do you plan to sell it?
Oh, absolutely. We hope to find a buyer that will support it right here in North Dakota.
On to university and the higher education budget. You asked for another 5% cut. How do you expect universities to deal with that? Where do you expect them to
Well,
come up extra
what
money?
we're hoping to do is look at the university system on a growth that's equal to the economic growth. In the past years, the university system has grown larger than that, and it's outstripped the ability of the people in North Dakota to pay for it. And what we're hoping to see now is that we can create the university system that will move along at the same rate of the economy. We can then fund it through the legislature at that same growth rate, should take the pressure off of increased tuition payments, and keep the things settled in. This is a start of the budgeting process, by the way. We've asked for a 95% base budget. As that moves forward, the budgeting process through the summer, we'll see some agencies that get more money, some agencies that get less. We're saying it's the starting point. As you know, all I can do is recommend a budget to the legislature. And so I think it's going to be a good project. We wanted to start at 95%, prioritize the programs, prioritize the spending, and then we'll see what we need beyond that.
Okay, Governor, thank you. You'll be busy with the Republican convention this weekend.
Thank you, Scott.
And thanks for joining us in Studio One today.
Take care.
Well, still to come on Studio One, a look at how Tibetan monks are traveling across America, performing their exquisite dances and songs to help the poor back in their homeland of Tibet. But first, a look at the pleasures of chocolate, wine, and champagne. Do they work well together, or are they just for special occasions?
Great food can come from anyone, as long as the shredded natural cheese comes from Sargento of Wisconsin.
So, what is the formula for a good investment? A good investment is long-term value, quality products, and strong support and service. You do have to look hard these days to find all these qualities in one product. So what do long-term value, quality products, and strong support and service equal? That's Honda of Grand Forks, where good value equals good business.
Newman Outdoor Advertising, a sight for more eyes. Outdoor advertising, it's bigger than life. It gives you flexibility. Use it as a constant reminder. Use it to advertise your message or product. Outdoor advertising, it's big, it's bold. Get your message across. Outdoor advertising, it works. For more information, call Bill Kasager in Fargo or Grand Forks.
There's good news about eating and drinking. Doctors and nutritionists say evidence indicates it's okay to enjoy chocolate snacks. And wine connoisseurs say buying your favorite bottle of wine can be as enjoyable as popping the cork.
Wine and chocolate go together like oil and water. Even though they don't mix, they both have unique qualities. You may not want to eat a piece of chocolate with a wine chaser, but after dinner, have a piece, why not? It won't hurt you. New studies reveal that America's favorite flavor is high on the nutrition front for all those chocolate lovers. Eating chocolate does not raise blood cholesterol levels, even though scientists thought it would.
Chocolate is different from other food sources of saturated fat because it contains stearic acid. which is not like the other saturated fatty acids in our diet. And by that I mean that it does not raise blood cholesterol levels.
Dr. Chris Etherton conducted a nutrition study at Penn State University. Healthy college-age males on heart-healthy or cholesterol-reducing diets ate daily chocolate bar snacks for a 3-week period. The study found the chocolate didn't raise the students' cholesterol level. The conclusion?
Is that milk chocolate bar can be included in a heart-healthy diet, and it still will not negate the very beneficial effects of the diet.
The key, doctors say, is stearic acid. Although it's considered a saturated fat, the label can be misleading.
There's a lot of evidence now that stearic acid, or the main type of fat in chocolate, is not a cholesterol raiser. I think the results are definitive.
Researchers gathered in Dallas to discuss the latest findings on chocolate, stearic acid, and cholesterol, and now they want to share the good news about America's favorite flavor.
Any individual food, such as chocolate, can have a meaningful role, particularly when it's balanced with other good things in the diet.
Eating chocolate makes nutrition makes eating in general a little more fun.
Not only is there good news for chocolate lovers, but also for the novice wine consumer. Choosing a good wine doesn't have to be a daunting task, according to wine writer Bob Thompson.
If you'll remember just 3 rules for finding a good quality sparkling wine, life will be easy. First, California coast counties, Napa, Sonoma, and especially appellations like Carneros are just turning out spectacularly good wines these days at very fair prices. Second, look for the words Méthode Champenoise on the label. That's your guarantee of traditional craftsmanship, of attention to detail, of looking for the very best kind of grapes. And the third is to pick the style you like. There are only 3 of those. Blanc de Noirs is the lightest, liveliest of the bunch. It's from Pinot Noir, much fresher flavors. Second, Blanc de Blanc comes from Chardonnay. It's a little richer, a little fuller for a bigger meal. And third is Brut, a blend of those 2 grapes, the most versatile of the 3 wines.
Once you've picked your winner, don't blow it by popping the cork. Donine Dyer, winemaker at Domaine Chandon, shows you how to open and pour like the pros.
First thing you want to do is make sure it's properly chilled. That's probably the most important thing you can do.
Next, remove the foil from the cork and loosen the wire hood with a few twists.
Once that wire hood is loose, never let go of the cork. That's the second most important thing. Cover the cork with a napkin. Hold the bottle at an angle, and so that you don't let go of the cork, twist the bottle, not the cork itself. And voila, a whisper. There are a couple of little tricks to pouring sparkling wine as well. If you pour the foam right up to the rim of the glass on the first pour, and then let that settle down, you can come back and fill the glass on the second pour right up to the rim.
Yvonne Fisher, Studio One.
Wine experts say you can have a glass of wine with any meal, but you should save that chocolate bar for dessert. We'll be back with more on Studio One, including the carefully choreographed dance of the Tibetan monks.
Drunk driving doesn't just kill drunk drivers. Next time your friend insists on driving drunk, do whatever it takes to stop him.
Hey, were you guys born in a house? Yeah. What have we got to graze on? Nothing. Please? Now, don't be making those big cow eyes at... okay.
It is okay if you give them the good stuff. Mootown Snackers, cheese and sticks, or cheese and pretzels. The deliciously dippable snacks.
Animals.
From Mootown Snackers.
Your approach is looking good, Cobra.
The men and women in the National Guard and Reserve face some tough challenges when they serve. Challenges that teach them discipline, leadership, and technical skills that make them better employees. So when they need time off to serve, don't make their toughest challenge approaching you.
Six monks from Tibet are touring the nation in an effort to help those who were forced from their homeland. In 1959, Red China invaded Tibet, forcing most Buddhists to flee to India. And by spreading their truth through meditation and entertainment, as Dana Olson reports, the monks hope to raise money for the poor of Tibet.
This tour is not a normal artistic performance. These Tibetan monks are on a mission. Their goal is to one day return to their homeland in Tibet. Long trumpets that you see here are called dung chin in Tibetan. They are part of many instruments brought on tour by 6 monks from Tibet. Religion professor Scott Lowe explains why the monks are on tour.
They're trying to publicize their plight and make their case known. China's most favored nation trading status comes up for renewal in 2 months, and I think Tibetans really do want to make the human rights issue a determining factor in how the United States deals with the People's Republic of China.
The performance has 2 parts. Part 1 is an example of how the monks reach purity of mind. They begin by offering a welcome to their high teacher by carrying a portrait of the Dalai Lama. To the monks, these songs and rituals are sacred prayers. They perform them in public as celebration and to enlighten people of their culture. Many of the costumes involved in these rituals are very elaborate and colorful. The goddesses of the 5 wisdoms are represented during the lifelong dance of the Skywalkers. The monks reply with a chant asking them to stay in our world for our benefit. Two skeleton lords are reminders that life and death are inseparable. The dance symbolizes the protective energy of wisdom and the forceful transformation of delusion. The Buddhist monks performed the Black Hat dance to commemorate the death of Lang Dharma, who once tried to rid Tibet of all Buddhists. The dagger in the dancer's hand signifies how Lang Dharma was killed. These elaborate costumes are a tribute to Palden Lamo in order to appease her because she is considered a wrathful deity. The dance asks her to watch over them. Buddhist monk Gary Young describes the tradition of debate.
This is the wisdom hand and this is the ignorance hand. So we'll ask the question and go D. When the wisdom hand hits the ignorance, it knocks it out of existence. And this hand, the wisdom, means that the wisdom just flies up.
The questions being debated here were, what is ego, what is body, and is ego found in the body? Although the debate was not spoken in English, the audience was able to understand whether or not they agreed with each other through the monks' movements. The monks ended their performance with a prayer for peace. The song was a plea for peace and the success of all spiritual practices. The monks continue their mission to raise money so they may return to the Potala Palace in Tibet, which was once called home. Dana Olson, Studio One.
And Kim, the monks, before they were performing here in Grand Forks, they were in Canada, and they'll continue to perform throughout the nation.
Looks like they put on a great performance.
A lot of hard work goes into it. Well, still ahead on Studio One. Coming up in our next half hour, well, if you feel like getting back to nature this spring and summer, Dale Anderson has some tips with his backpack, and he'll show you how to do it.
Plus, a close-up look into those people who don't work an ordinary 8-to-5 workday. They head to work when the sun goes down. We'll show you the differences on the night shift. That story plus much more straight ahead in our next half hour on Studio One.
You're exposed to so many different ideas and projects. The engineering school here itself is set up so that the class size is reasonable and the professors are great.
Our equipment we use is up to date and very new and very accurate. Part of the reason why I've gone into this program is because of the environmental aspects.
With about 12,000 students, UND is the largest university in the Dakotas, Montana, and western Minnesota. About 170 major fields provide education in careers that include engineering, law, medicine, aerospace, and business. Dedicated faculty, individual attention. Join us at the University of North Dakota.
Your first time as a junior achievement elementary school volunteer can be a little scary. Can you get kids that young to think about their futures? Call us about volunteering, and you'll see. We'll supply you with training for this new program, and the kids will supply plenty of motivation.
And welcome back to the second half hour here in Studio One.
Well, if you put away your winter coat, you may have to take it out for at least one more day.
Well, unfortunately, again, I hate to bring bad news, but there is snow in the forecast for today. However, it's going to be short-lived. Most of that should be heavy precipitation snow, and it should melt away within the day or the next couple of days because temperature's back in the 50s again, and it looks like nothing too much to worry about.
Just make that sun come out and the snow will go away.
I sure hope so.
Okay, thanks, Craig. Well, just ahead on this final half hour, Studio One, Attorney General Heidi Heitkamp will talk about juvenile crime in North Dakota and the crime bill President Clinton is pushing.
Also on this half hour, we'll talk with Dale Anderson. He'll open up his backpack for us today and let you know what's a necessity when camping this spring.
But before we talk with our guests, let's get to our news update from Jennifer Vandergaan. Jennifer?
Thanks, Scott. The United States is asking PLO Chairman Yasser Arafat to publicly condemn the recent violence in Israel and the occupied territories to keep the peace process going. A Palestinian gunman killed an Israeli and wounded at least 4 others in Ashdod Thursday. Wednesday, a Palestinian bombing in Hafrullah left 8 people dead and scores injured. The PLO has extended condolences to the victims' families, but U.S. officials say that's not enough. Israel has sealed off the occupied territories for nearly a week. Israeli troops captured 4 unarmed men trying to sneak into Israel from Jordan. Their motive was unclear. The crew of a Federal Express cargo jet came under attack in flight by an off-duty company employee. Authorities say Auburn Calloway burst into the cockpit of a DC-10 armed with claw hammers, a knife, and a spear gun. Crew members were able to overpower Calloway after a bloody struggle. The pilot made an emergency landing in Memphis. 3 people, including Calloway, are in critical condition. Researchers say that AIDS testing in the privacy of your own home is not far away. The test would use dried blood and would be sent away to a lab for analysis. Results could be obtained through a phone call. Skeptics fear that the test could give devastating news to people who haven't received proper counseling.
Would we be absolutely sure that it was done properly, and would those results be 99% accurate? What kind of support systems do they have when they get that information? Those would be concerns I would have.
A test more likely to be used in the future has the patient holding a test stick in the mouth for 2 minutes during a doctor's office visit. The results would then be available at a follow-up appointment. This test could reduce the cost of the current AIDS test by $45. Dakota, Georgia, and Indiana are places that can be found on most maps, but now many people are using these and similar names for their children. People are trying to get away from common names, and it's becoming popular to choose baby names from a map or family tree. Hollywood is a trendsetter for new baby names. Don Johnson and Melanie Griffith chose Dakota for their new daughter. People are also looking into their ethnic backgrounds for inspiration. A book called Beyond Jennifer and Jason is one of the many resources available for ideas on original baby names. When contact lenses were first introduced, many people realized that taking care of them can be a lot of work. But now with extended wear contact lenses, people can wear lenses for days without cleaning them. Studio One reporter Lucy Sivka takes a look at how far contact lens technology has come.
Contact lenses have been clearing people's eyesight for over 40 years. The small plastic lenses conform to the shape of the cornea, correcting vision. Contact lenses also correct peripheral vision because the lenses sit directly on the eye. Most contacts must be placed in a solution overnight to prevent them from drying out. Eye Care Technology has recently produced a new product called extended wear contact lenses. In theory, contact wearers can leave these lenses in overnight or several days in a row. But there are some disadvantages to this new type of lens.
Most people don't realize when their eye has been deprived of oxygen and when the cornea has gone to sleep. When that cornea goes to sleep, it becomes traumatized very easily, and then infection can set in real quickly.
The high water content of an extended wear contact lens allows large amounts of oxygen to reach the eye. Contact lens wearers should make sure their eyes are getting the moisture and oxygen they need. Optometrists say contact lenses are popular because of their convenience opposed to normal glasses.
If you're an extended wear contact lens wearer, Dr. Hall suggests that you should come in every 3 months to get your eyes examined.
The extended wear contacts are preferred by people who are on call, like doctors, police officers, and ambulance workers. Doctors warn users not to wear them longer than they have to, though, since your eyes need moisture. The longer contacts are on the eye, the drier they become. For Studio One News, I'm Lucy Sivka.
The FDA is considering taking extended wear lenses off the market because people have abused them. Some people leave them in for longer periods of time than instructed. Fashion trends change often, and keeping up with the latest styles can be costly. There's one idea that the Arts and Crafts Center at UND has come up with to solve your fashion woes. On the 3rd floor of the Student Union, there's a tie-dyeing center.
Paper that tells you how to go. People are interested in the 60s, and the 60s is very in right now. Bell bottoms, you look at the fashion around you. And back then, if I understand it correctly, I wasn't around, but the tie-dyeing was a really big thing.
The Arts and Crafts Center will dye t-shirts for under $2. They will also dye just about anything else from jeans to bed sheets. There are 5 people that work at the tie-dyeing station, and there's always someone available to help. The employees don't actually dye the article for you. They simply teach you how and let you show off your own creativity. And I've got here a sample that the reporter Julie Conneran brought in from the Arts and Crafts Center,
Nice.
and this is a sample of her handiwork. So
can like anyone do it, or do you really need some artistic talent to be able to tie dye?
I don't think it takes any talent. They show you everything you need to do, and she did a good job. So
Sure did. Excellent. Good. Thanks, Jennifer. Well, all of us at one time or another had to make certain sacrifices for a job, and whether it be working on weekends, putting in extra hours, or even working on the holidays. But those sacrifices may seem small when compared to what some professions demand. The expectations can basically be as different as day and night. Kim Fisher explains.
When the clock strikes 5, people are calling it quits and packing the streets on their drive home. As the sun sets and night falls, most of us are bringing our day to an end. But for others, it's just beginning.
This is Kim Kohler with at least 50 minutes of music this hour. I've got the magic lines open. You want to hear something? Make sure you call me up. 772-9696. Here's Elemental. It's new stuff by Tears for Fears on Magic 96.
It's midnight, and disc jockey Kim Cooley is just starting her shift at Magic 96. The night shift, that is, which means Kim's days and nights are a little mixed up.
Your body really has to adjust. One thing that's really important for anyone that's working overnights is that they've got to see the sunlight during a day, because your body needs sunlight to grow, and for your skin to look healthy and your hair to look healthy, you've got to see daylight. So I try and at least get 2-3 hours out and about so that I get some daylight. And if I can't, then I generally try and hit the tanning bed, because that's a light source also.
Kim says she wouldn't mind working during the day, but working nights gives her a few advantages she wouldn't otherwise get.
Since it's the overnights, I have a lot more leeway with what I can do with my show. I can make mistakes. I can do things at night that you really couldn't get away with during the day, because people are listening in the office.
There may not be coworkers listening in the office, but Kim's nighttime audience keeps her busy with more than just phone calls and requests.
A nighttime disc jockey becomes Dear Abby, Alcoholics Anonymous, and a babysitter all rolled into one. My demographics are usually students and people who work out at the base, and people like myself who just have to work all night.
And the later it gets, the more willing callers are to do almost anything to hear their favorite song.
Okay, would you stand on your head and sing the national anthem right there in front of your coworkers?
Right now, yes, I would.
But besides all of this late-night excitement, Kim has a few secrets to staying awake of her own.
When my body starts slowing down and caffeine isn't kicking in, I usually just try and pick up the pace a little bit to get my energy level back up.
The pace of the night shift is something Officer Donnie Bryant has gotten used to.
I like the action on nights. It means you're drinking out in public where you're not. To me, there's really too many people or too much traffic to really do anything during the daytime. If you have the 8 o'clock rush, and you have the noon rush, and then you have the 5 o'clock rush, I don't really like to deal with that. I personally hate doing accident reports. I hate it.
Donnie has worked the night shift for 11 years now, but one thing's for sure, you'll never hear him complaining.
For me, it's normal, so it would be like what most people do during the daytime, I do at night. And then the sun comes up, and I go to bed, and people think that's strange.
So what kind of calls keep this man busy until all hours of the morning?
Normally where we get our domestics calls and loud parties. Had a lot of loud parties on the weekend. Up until 1, 2 o'clock, it's pretty much hopping so we stay busy. In the summertime, it goes from 10 o'clock. We start hopping at 10 o'clock and we don't stop until it's time to go home the next morning.
Staying alert and on his toes is something Donnie has to take very seriously. But for him, caffeine isn't the answer.
Don't drink coffee at all. Caffeine makes me sleepy.
So how about donuts?
I don't go to the donut shop.
But his eating habits are a little backwards.
Well, I'll eat a pizza or something like that for, 8 o'clock in the morning. People think that's strange. But then I've been awake all night.
And as Officer Bryant and disc jockey Kim Cooley wrap up their shifts and head home, it's morning, and most of us are starting a new day.
So Kim, what kind of habits do they get into? Anything different on a day-to-day basis because they work at night?
Well, one thing is that they don't set alarms unless they take a nap closer to their shift.
Oh, wow. Any unusual habits that they go into?
Well, since most people are awake during the day, they assume that everybody else is too, so they get a lot of phone calls, but that is solved by the answering machine.
Yeah. And doorbell rings.
Right.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Well, coming up next on Studio One, North Dakota's Attorney General Heidi Heitkamp will discuss the solutions facing juvenile crime.
Community Bank means to me excellent service and good friends. I would really recommend Community Bank. I have sent several friends over to see Larry Morgan too. I think he's great. They can answer any question over there and they'll tell you right. I have had such excellent service there that I believe that you would be treated royally if you come in there too.
Real people, real quality, real value, real commitment, and real satisfaction. At Nissan of Grand Forks, quality is our commitment.
The fear of gangs infiltrating North Dakota communities has become a great concern to nearly everyone. But how do we put a stop to this, and also how do we deal with the rising juvenile crime rate? North Dakota's Attorney General Heidi Heitkamp shares with us today her strategy on reducing juvenile crime. Heidi, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start by taking a look at some numbers which show that juvenile crime is on the rise, and just over the past few years has increased quite a bit. In 1990, 6,485, and in going all the way to 1992, nearly 7,400. Why the increase?
If you talk to the officials at the juvenile court, what they will tell you is when you categorize kids that fall within the system, there used to be a much greater number of kids who were labeled unruly. They think they're falling into the assault category, they're being treated as assaults, which they should be, and a lot of this is happening in people's homes. And so it's again, that whole issue of family violence, and the family has also become not only our streets, but also our families have become more violent.
Now, with gangs becoming more prevalent across America, do you foresee that happening in North Dakota?
Well, you know, it's interesting to watch kind of the trends from the West Coast. Salt Lake City, you would think here is a community that has really over the years focused on strong Christian moral values. Salt Lake City has a huge gang problem, and when you watch the trend come across the Midwest into Kansas City and move up into the Twin Cities area, you just have to know that there is going to be some attempts at moving that kind of activity into the state of North Dakota. I think our communities are reacting in a very positive way. I mean, they're trying to get ahead of this. Fargo is now thinking about doing a program in the schools, program called GREAT, which is an anti-gang program coming out of California. Some of the tests that they've done there, what's worked. Minot has a huge task force dealing with how they turn around some of the early gang activity that they've seen there. I think there's lots of discussion about whether we actually do have gangs in North Dakota or whether it's the wannabe kind of activity. Most of the experts will tell you be careful of the wannabes too, because that they can almost, to prove their point, they can almost be more dangerous than the gangs themselves. And so hopefully we're for once, if we're going to see this trend, we're getting ahead of the trend by everybody not burying their heads in the sand, but taking a really concerted, positive effort for change in the communities.
Now, President Clinton is pushing for a crime bill. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
The crime bill has been in the past held up by something called habeas reform, which would take me forever to kind of explain this legal jargon, but there is pretty much now a commitment on all fronts that we are going to see out of this Congress a crime bill, and it's going to be tough but smart. And why I say that is it's going to include a lot of the kind of 3 strikes and you're out, a lot of expansion of death penalties in certain federal crimes, a lot of expansion of penalties for federal crimes and expansion really of federal crimes itself. But the smart part of it when people talk about tough but smart is really the prevention dollars. There's dollars in there to work on the issue of combating family violence, which the Attorney General of our country, Janet Reno, and I totally agree with her, believes is a root cause for a lot of the activity that we're seeing on the streets, what's happening to kids on the front end. There's money in the crime bill for community policing. Now people will say, well, that's really a law enforcement activity, but the dollars are really to develop police forces that are out there, that are visible, that are doing a lot of prevention stuff, a lot of early detection stuff on the front end. Fargo's very interested in pursuing this program, and they've got some wonderful things to say. The real nice thing about this activity is I've been all over the state listening to what law enforcement's saying, social service agencies, and we can kind of dwell on these numbers and say, you know, this is horrible, but I can tell you that there is a lot of attention to stopping you know, those trends. But getting back to the crime bill also has hopefully a number of dollars for some interesting correctional activity. You've heard about boot camps, and I had to laugh because I saw your ad earlier for the Army and the Air Force, and the military used to be our boot camps. I mean, when a kid went, you know, I'm a lot older than you are, but when a kid my age got in trouble, what you frequently did is they ended up going to the military and they learned that discipline. Now the military is much more selective in who they let in. You know, you have to have a high school degree, and I think they're a little more selective about what kind of juvenile record you have. So now we're trying to recreate what used to be using kind of boot camps and disciplinary kinds of early correctional opportunities. People will say, do they work any better than prisons? Some people will say no, but they're a lot cheaper. And so they provide the public the security, but also at a reduced cost.
Very quickly, what does this mean for North Dakota as far as money?
It means some additional dollars. There is an allocation portion in this, and we're always concerned because if we have to compete with the whole nation, we usually don't do very well. But there is allocation of dollars for rural crime, allocations of dollars for states.
Okay, Heidi, thank you so much for joining us today. Up next on Studio One, Dale Anderson will join us with his backpack and on tips on successful camping when you really want to rough it.
Hey, were you guys born in a house? Yeah. What have we got to graze on? Nothing.
Please. Now, don't be making those big cow eyes at okay.
It is okay if you give them the good stuff. Mootown Snackers, cheese and sticks, or cheese and pretzels. The deliciously dippable snacks.
Animals.
From Mootown Snackers.
So, whose influence are you under?
Newman Outdoor Advertising, a sight for more eyes. Outdoor advertising, it's bigger than life. It gives you flexibility. Use it as a constant reminder. Use it to advertise your message or product. Outdoor advertising, it's big, it's bold. Get your message across. Outdoor advertising, it works. For more information, call Bill Kasager in Fargo or Grand Forks.
Summer is just around the corner and many people are starting to get out their gear to go camping.
The Director of Recreation and Leisure Activities at UND, Dale Anderson, joins us today with backpack on his back to tell us what important things are needed when you really want to rough it and go camping.
Good morning.
Dale, thanks for joining us. You're really dressed for roughing it.
I'm ready to go. Where's the trail?
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's in your backpack?
I've got a whole bunch of things that we can show you. I'll just slide it over here onto the table.
It's heavy.
It's, yeah, a lot of
stuff in here. So if people are going to go camping, they're going to have to work out with
have some
weights.
muscles for this.
Oh, that's a good part of it. A person does need to be physically ready to accomplish something like backpacking. Just think about what it would take to hike several miles, say 6 or 8 miles into a backcountry area. You're out there by yourself with the wildlife and nature, and it's all its glory. And you need to be prepared or very self-sufficient for anything that's going to run into you. Rain, for example, I have my rain jacket here ready to go, and I keep it in a handy place in case it starts to sprinkle. What is the forecast, by the way, for today?
A little snow.
A little snow in the forecast.
That's going to dictate a great deal of what is in this pack and what kinds of things you need that are essential.
Let's dig right on into the pack and see what you have.
Sure.
Now, what you're wearing, is this typical what you would wear when going camping?
Yes and no. I've got some good examples on and I've got some bad examples on. The critical element here is what kind of material is the clothing made out of. For example, my rain jacket is a Gore-Tex material, which is a fairly high-tech type of clothing. It's made to shed water as well as be breathable at the same time, so it'll ventilate moisture from the body as you sweat, as you work up a sweat. And you will work up a sweat while you're backpacking. I have a fleece-type jacket on, which is kind of a replacement for what we used to wear, wool. Wool is heavy, it's kind of itchy, some people don't like to wear it, and now the high-tech synthetic types of materials on the market are replacing wool in a large scale. They're much lighter, they're much more comfortable. The critical element is that they keep you warm even though they might get wet. And we get wet inside as well as from the outside.
What are some of the other necessities?
Lots of things can be involved here. I've got a cup. I prefer to bring a plastic mug. We don't want anything that's breakable, and something with a lid on it so that I can slosh my coffee around and keep it warm longer. Some of those kinds of things. But a plastic mug is important so you don't break it and lose it. This is a sleeping pad. Your sleeping system is critical. If I'm going to spend a night out in the boonies someplace, I want to be comfortable, I want to be warm. This time of year, this is kind of a deluxe version actually, the heavy-duty pad. This goes on the ground, it's air inflatable. It'll inflate itself. We just open the air valve here and lay it out where we're going to set up camp, and it'll inflate itself. There's open cell foam inside of this, but yet it's also a waterproof barrier underneath you. Sleeping on the frozen ground, you need something waterproof. You also need some insulation, because your sleeping bag will also keep you warm, but you compress the insulation as you lie down on it, and therefore you squeeze the insulating qualities out of the bottom side of the sleeping bag. So you do need another layer of insulation under you. In the summertime, it's not critical because the ground's warm. Now it's cold, so we need that additional material. Another thing I'd like to drag out right away is my water bottle. I have it handy. Incidentally, when you arrange a backpack, You have all of the features that you need quickly, like water. We recommend on a backpacking trip that somebody take a drink of water about once every 20 minutes or so, and also probably take a break. Set the pack down, take a little break, give your body a little bit of a rest, take a drink of water. People tend to backpack till they're thirsty, and that's a mistake. That's a good way to get dehydrated very quickly, because you are working, you know, some heavy physical work. You do need to treat the water in many areas. The water, if I were to load up here out of the coulee, we may have to filter it through a sock or something like that, but we also want to treat it somehow. I use the iodine treatment method for drinking water, for purifying drinking water, and there are other alternatives. Filters are probably a more pleasant way to go, but they tend to be a little more expensive, and there's sort of pros and cons to both sides of that part.
We're running out a little out of time, so can you just label off, like in the next 30 seconds, of what's in your backpack?
I'd like to kind of swing it around here a little bit. On the other side, I have a pocket with all the other goodies, my camera, film, things like that. I usually go backpacking for the scenery. I like to get out into nature and enjoy what I see, and my camera helps me to appreciate that, so that stays handy. My first aid kit's on top of the pack. First aid items are a critical element, and need to have it handy. A first aid kit won't do you much good if you have to dig for a half an hour to get to it in case of a bleeding emergency or something like that. Lunch, I've got some good examples and bad examples. One of the things we try to avoid is things like fresh fruit, which do have a great deal of water content and are therefore heavy. You ready for that, Kim? There's your breakfast.
All right, thanks.
We got to cut it short, but thank you very much for joining us. And if they want to rough it, they can give you a call here at UND.
You bet. We've got a class coming up during the summer session, too. So if somebody wants to really get into this, we'll take them out on a weekend trip.
Okay, thanks so much for joining us,
Thank
Dan.
you.
And you're watching Studio One. We'll be right back after this.
The right combination of protection, value, response, and service. That's our philosophy, and it has been since 1947. Voller Insurance, Grand Forks, Devils Lake, Bismarck.
Here's one time it doesn't matter who your neighbor is. Here's the other. Life's too short. Stop the hate.
In a life-threatening emergency, you should know what to do. Say a loved one exhibits unusual symptoms. The first thing to do is...
Clear!
No. The first thing to do...
Oh! Tourniquet!
No! The first thing you do is pick up the phone and dial your emergency number.
Call 911 first.
Right.
How about mouth to mouth?
I don't think so. To learn more about life-saving techniques, contact your Red Cross.
The insurance salesperson. They've never been the most popular people in town until you need them. Voller Insurance, Grand Forks, Devils Lake, Bismarck.
That's it for today's edition of Studio One. We're going to leave you today with the sequel to The Mighty Ducks. This one is called D2, The Mighty Ducks, and it's from Walt Disney Pictures. I'm Scott Seiler, and for everyone here at Studio One, thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend, and see you next week for more Studio One.
To be really great human beings. We won't settle for anything in them unless it's the very best they can do in terms of their performance.
Coach White makes you feel like falling is good. Every time you fall, you learn a little more, you know, so you shouldn't be embarrassed at all, because everybody's falling out there. You're not the only one, you're all in it together. It's just that some people are taking bigger spills than others.
It's incredible. We're at center ice, and we're playing with the Vikings, whatever. We're bowing to the audience, and there's 20,000 people standing up, cheering for us. It was the greatest feeling.
To tell you the truth, that was the best day of my life. It really was.
Stand tall.